The Grafthouse is a passion-driven project created for the love of graffiti and the community that graffiti represents. Grafthouse is the first 100% submission-based graffiti zine by writers for writers. If you want to be included in a future zine, or if you even want to support Grafthouse, be sure to check out their Instagram and website. Of course, the link's at the top of the description or at the top of the comments below, or just simply go to grafthouse.com. Thank you so much to Grafthouse for sponsoring this video. I highly suggest you guys go check it out, and if you grab anything on the website, be sure to use the discount code Youfo for 15% off. It's a really awesome idea, and it could be a way to get your name out there. Grafthouse.com. 10 things graffiti writers need. Number 1. An upright bag. These are perfect for carrying your cans of paint in because generally speaking, if they're all sitting upright, they won't make as much noise as opposed to if they were laying down or in random angles in say a backpack or a shopping bag. The best thing to do is keep the boxes that the cans actually come packaged in. A box that is perfect size for storing 6 cans is absolutely perfect. If you don't have enough cans to fill the box, just make sure you jam something in the cracks so they don't move around. This type of bag setup is also great for when you're grabbing a different color of paint because most and if not all cans of paint have the color indication on the top of the can. Number 2, male and female cap adapters. When you get a chance, grab some cap adapters for both male and female caps. That way you can still use any type of cap that you encounter on just about any can of paint in the world. For example, the best cap for an Australian export can of paint, in my opinion at least, is the classic Lego cap. But this Lego cap is a male cap, and the Aussie export can of paint has a male valve, meaning you can't use that cap on that said can without using a special cap adapter, and vice versa with female caps to male cans. You can get an adapter for those as well, but I don't believe they are too common, so as long as you can grab a male to male cap adapter, you are fine. Number 3, buff paint. Buff paint is basically just a tin of paint, the type of paint that you have to use on a roller typically, but buff paint is a great way to save some money and get some interesting looking backgrounds, or simply give yourself a brand new wall to paint on. By simply going to your local paint store and going to the paint section there, you can have a look at the cheap mist tints that they have from as little as $2. Obviously with that, grabbing a really cheap disposable paint roller will be great to get the paint on the wall, but this is also a way to get creative with the bucket paint that you have. You can spatter it, throw it, use newspaper, a sponge, any way you can think of getting the paint on the wall and at least spreading it out to where you need it. The possibilities are endless, but obviously the best way is ultimately the good old paint roller. Number 4, something pointy. This one's a little different, but I figured I'd add it to the list anyway. So basically, sometimes cans of paint do have their malfunctions, and one of those malfunctions could result in the paint no longer wanting to come out of where it's supposed to come from. This happens more often than not when a can is full or even half full, and it would certainly have enough gas in it as well, but the valves and stuff is just done for. For some weird reason, it just stops working. So that's when you have a little bit of fun with it, and you still get the usage out of the can. You still get to use the can of paint. What you can do is grab that pointy thing and quickly stab the can of paint, which would then make the paint spray everywhere, but it makes for a really fun and messy way to fill in your pieces of graffiti. Some writers sometimes actually do this on purpose with normal cans that aren't broken, all in order to make the filling in or the color in stage much quicker than it would normally be. But of course, if you don't have a pointy object, find a rock or a corner of something and pierce the metal can and just have at it. Number 5, a steel wool sponge. These things are great for cleaning up paint on various surfaces, including your skin and fingernails. A fellow fan of mine personally uses in combination with a Zippo lighter fluid. It also works on clothes, and you can clean up your spot there and then if it's necessary. But ultimately, it's a good item to have on you for the removal of possible evidence if you're worried about that. Grabbing the steel wool sponge and scrubbing something with it for a bit will definitely ensure that you're getting the paint and everything off. Number 6, a high-vis vest. A high-vis vest has worked for so many writers for many years now, because when people see a person in high-vis vest, it automatically changes the chemical in the brain and puts minds at ease, because when you're wearing a high-vis vest, you're generally seen as just to be working on something, like you're meant to be there. Another thing that really sells this and can help with your facade is the attitude. Just act like you're meant to be there. Number 7, have variations of caps. It's great to have an assortment of caps or nozzles, if you want to call them that, you'll never know what your piece will call for in terms of the effects that you want to achieve. And certain caps give you certain desired things. It is also fun to play around with what different caps can do. You'll find a lot of caps do spray similar lines and dots, but really learning can control makes a big difference when learning to know the little differences between caps that they have between each other. Another good reason to have a few caps on hand is just in case one actually clogs up. It won't be the end of the world if one does, because then you'll have a couple backup caps right there in your bag or pocket. And if you're also riding with other riders, sometimes they might need certain caps which may help them out if you have some as well. Number 8, 1 can of white paint. Always plan to have at least 1 can of white paint with you when you are piecing. White is one of the main colors for highlights and shines, and having one on board is always a lifesaver indeed. Again, if you are painting with other people, you might find that at least one of them people need to borrow a white just for a second because of how commonly used a white is. Or maybe you have been in that situation where you've run out of white or didn't bring enough white with you to the spot to begin with, and therefore you have to ask to borrow some paint. So yeah, keep white in your shopping cart at all times because white is a good color. If you live in America and you want some cheap and affordable paint, go ahead and head over to blankslaps.com. He's got an assortment of different types of paints that you can get, and if you use the discount code Youfo, you'll get 10% off your order. Number 9, half pressure rings. These little guys help for when your can control in terms of the pressure aspect isn't quite there yet. Basically what these little rings do is make paint come out with way less pressure. That way you can get thinner lines without manually trying to only half press down on the cap. Just 1 or 2 of these half pressure rings on the bottom of the cap, and then you put the cap on the can and start to paint with it. Even though can control does need to be learned, and you shouldn't rely on these rings to do the low pressure type painting, I reckon these would be perfect for quick tagging runs, where you get pencil thin tags without having to put the effort of keying in your can control. And lastly, we're at number 10. Once again, I have to do that typical YouTuber thing, but please make sure you've liked the video and commented literally anything random in the comment section below, just to let me know that you've liked these videos and you're watching them this far in. If you're watching it this far in, it honestly means the entire world to me. Thank you so much. Yeah, sure, I might be toy or I don't know how to do graffiti specifically that well, and I do have my fair share of haters. But let's move on to the number 10. Honestly guys, I've been sitting here for the last few days, well not constantly obviously, and I feel like I've really covered everything in this video, so I literally can't think of 10th and final thing that every graffiti writer needs. Obviously you do need your different variations of colors of paint, you need your markers and your mops, and even stickers, you know, but obviously I tried my hardest to keep those very simple things out and tried to think of interesting but, you know, different things that you need that are not so obvious, you know, like cans and like, number 1, you need spray paint, obviously, you know, you guys already know that you need something like that to start doing graffiti with. It's too obvious, you know, I'm not going to start a video like that. Obviously, if you're here for graffiti, you already know how graffiti is created, but for number 10, whatever you want it to be, like, I don't